Hi there, welcome to Beyond the Asana, where we sit down and have conversations around all things yoga teacher and wellness professional related. We try to take a deep dive into the pool and discuss things beyond just the physical asana, though today we're kind of talking about the physical asana. But we try to go deeper into yogic philosophy, Eastern philosophy, and all the things that kind of are hanging out in the background of being a yoga teacher and a wellness professional. My name is Jess Prue, and I am joined today by Mike Williams, my partner in life and in business and in this whole entire
I like
world,
that. That could be our tagline. My
right?
partner in business and in life.
We have these conversations constantly, so you're sort of joining us in our space of talking about all things related to this, since this is a large part of what we do with our lives on a
Yeah.
daily. So today I wanted to talk about this sort of argument that I see on social media, and I'm not in the mood to argue with anybody, so I'm not here to argue, just here to sort of put my spin on it, my 2 cents in, as somebody who's been doing this for a very, very, very long time, and just have a discussion around if a yoga teacher should or should not physically practice while they are teaching or instructing an asana practice,
Or maybe it's somewhere in the middle.
or somewhere in the middle. Um, so I have definitely seen this argument go back and forth. I know that there are some, I'm not going to call them schools of yoga because that's not what they are, but there are some schools of asana that sort of ascribe to this idea that a good yoga instructor only walks around the studio space while they're teaching a practice, and they don't physically do the practice. And we have others that think that you should practice the entire time, and then we have something that sort of hits on the in between.
Mm-hmm.
You're a meditation teacher, though you've also done yoga
Plenty of
training, and
classes. Yeah.
and you've taught plenty of yoga classes, but you would consider yourself to lean more toward the meditation side. So as a yoga student, what is your preference?
My preference for anything that I'm learning, actually, even outside of yoga, I'm very visual, right? So even going back to school, I would sit through classes and lectures and I would kind of grasp the concepts, but then I got into the lab and I actually did the work, and just doing that, seeing it, physically touching whatever I was working with really helped everything sink in. So when I'm in a yoga class, I'm always, especially when I'm new to it, looking at the instructor,
Yeah.
right? Because I want to see how it's done properly, how you should be doing it. And I think if the instructor or the teacher wasn't doing that, I'd probably look to others more experienced in the class to see how they're doing it, and that could be a little uncomfortable.
Mm.
Um, you don't want to accidentally lock eyes with someone. Like you're looking to see what they're doing, and they look over at you. You're like, so yeah, the instructor should definitely be the point of reference for how to do any
Yeah,
any kind of asana.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So wiggling into this discussion of whether a yoga teacher should physically practice or whether they should only be walking around the room. um, I, not to always throw this out there, I don't think it's that hugely important, but just for some context, I've been teaching yoga for 26 years and I've been practicing since I was 16. So I just, I say that only because I've done it a lot. Um, and I teach 200-hour, 500-hour yoga teacher training, and many other sort of continuing education stuff. And I think the most important thing for us to look at is, one, like, strip the asana out of it, just like you said. That's the most important thing, is really taking a step back and understanding how people learn.
Mm.
And the majority of people are a blend of different types of learning styles. We could take all the little tests and people will say, you're an auditory learner, you're visual, or you're a kinesthetic learner. But really, all of us are some kind of a blend of all of those things. And so for us to learn, especially in a physical practice, it becomes really important that, one, you are hearing what somebody's asking of you to do. Two, that you can see it. So I can look up and I can see what you're doing and I can mimic that thing or attempt to mimic that thing. And then three, there needs to be language around it for you to give me the space to actually feel it in my body. Like,
Mm,
what do you notice? What do you feel? What happens if your knee lands here or your knee lands here? Can you
mm-hmm.
feel the difference between the two? Right. And that is just someone who is providing a really comprehensive look at the world of asana, the world of this physical experience. And I know that for many schools of thought within the asana community, that walking around and only verbally teaching a class is somehow a marker of being an advanced teacher. And it is, right? There is an aspect of that
Mm-hmm.
where you've developed the skills to do that. But those skills take such an incredible amount of time, years and years and years to hone those skills. You could never expect somebody to come out of a foundational 200-hour yoga teacher training and then walk around a room and give the cues necessary for people to understand what it is you are asking them to do with their body.
Right, and it could be anywhere from a complex position to a simple one. Like,
Yeah.
for example, for me, when I first started doing yoga and I was doing a forward fold, I was bending more with my shoulders and trying to reach towards the floor. But when I looked at my instructor, my teacher, you, you would say, like, use your hip as like a hinge, and most of your, if not all of your movement is coming from your hips, and you just kind of fall forward that way, and it's more natural and less on your hamstrings, because
Sure.
all of that, if your hips are loose, then you're able to do a forward fold easier.
Hmm.
You have to kind of see how that looks first
Sure.
before you can do it yourself.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
that helped me a lot when I saw that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I am not someone who teaches with hands-on assists. I actually avoid hands-on assists, which is a whole nother argument that we can get into.
That'll be a whole nother
That would
podcast.
be a whole
Yeah,
nother
yeah.
podcast, and we will dive into that. But that becomes part of it as well, right? So for someone like me who does not teach with hands-on assist, because I believe that for students to actually learn where to put their body, they need to be the master and have the autonomy of understanding the way that their body moves.
Hmm.
So that's my philosophy on that. So I don't have the ability to go up and move somebody physically and put them in the position that I need them in. So sometimes I need to exaggerate with my body what I'm asking them to do so that they understand what that means. Sometimes I need to use my voice to exaggerate so that they understand that this movement is happening, right? And then sometimes it's just the language. I need to use the proper language. But I would never say, take your right shoulder and stick it out through the right corner of the, like, that's not what it is.
Hmm.
And so you need to understand the way to develop the verbiage around what it is that you're trying to say
Right.
so that your students could pick it up and fully understand and grasp that.
And it takes pressure off the student too, right? If you're if
Yes.
you're if you're in a certain position and you may say, reach your fingers towards the opposite side of the room, or the where the ceiling meets the wall, and I physically can't do that, I'm stressed out trying to do that because I feel that if I'm not doing that, I'm
Right.
not doing it correctly.
Right.
And that's not the case. If my limitation, maybe I have an issue with my shoulder, my hand can only reach the middle of the ceiling,
Sure.
doesn't mean I'm doing it wrong at
Right.
all. I'm doing it the best I can do it.
Right.
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 So,
Yeah. A crescent moon is a crescent moon is a crescent moon,
right.
right? There's tons of different variations across this very wide spectrum of what that is.
Right.
Um, so, you know, it, within this whole argument, there's the one side that says this is the proper way to do it, and then there's this other side that this is the proper way to do it. Um, I have learned, and this is probably going to be an entirely other podcast, but I've learned with maturity that it doesn't matter, right? Like, yoga teaches me that I have to let that go. It doesn't matter. So if you believe that one thing and that's how you want to teach, beautiful. Teach that way. And if this person believes that this is the way to do it, teach that way. That's beautiful too. Even when I teach a 200-hour yoga teacher training, I say to my students, you have to develop your own style, your own way of practicing, your own way of teaching. And so I may say to you, I don't believe that hands-on assists are the way to go. Here's all of my reasons why. I didn't come up with that out of the clear blue sky. I'm gonna talk for hours about why I believe that and where that comes from. But if that doesn't rest in your mind the right way, you leave it and you figure it out. Go take another training and learn how to do hands-on
Mhm.
assist. If you took a training and your teacher told you that you should only walk around, but that doesn't resonate with you, it doesn't feel right, that's not what you want to do, learn how to shift it and do something
Mhm.
differently. And vice versa, right? It's like it's just you as a teacher figuring out what makes the most sense for you.
And if you're comfortable with both, maybe it comes down to what your students are comfortable
Yeah,
with, right? So I've been in other classes where there's coins, like a double-sided
sure.
coin, right? So if you put a coin on one side, you're okay with hands-on assist. If you put it to the other side, you don't want to, you don't
Yeah,
want hands-on assist at all. You want to do it by yourself.
yeah,
So the instructor or the teacher can do it either way,
yeah,
whatever's comfortable for the student.
yeah. And it becomes important for you as a teacher to develop your style, right? But and we talked about this in a previous podcast, what's more important than anything is what your students are telling you.
Hmm.
What do they need? What do they want? What are they asking for? And in that, if you're losing people because they feel alienated because they don't know what you're talking about, like if you've ever gone to a yoga class where all they do is speak in Sanskrit the entire time,
Mm.
and then somebody new walks in the door and they've never heard those words in their life and they're not physically practicing in the front of the room. I would never go back again if I was
Right.
somebody new because I would have no idea what was going on. I would feel completely alienated. And so much of what we're trying to do in this whole world of yoga and meditation and all of these things is to create community. And within community, what we're saying is all are welcome here. And I am going to try my damnedest to make sure that each person in this room leaves feeling successful on
Hmm.
some level, or leaves feeling loved, or leaves feeling like it was a compassionate space and they felt seen and
And,
appreciated.
and they feel that connection, that
Yeah,
connection with their fellow students, connection with the yoga studio,
yeah,
connection with the teacher,
yeah, yeah,
connection with themselves,
yeah,
right? So if you could break down as many of those barriers and open up that connection to that whole experience,
yeah.
students are going to want to come back and
Abs-
experience that over and over again.
Absolutely. So I think the question is not whether you should or should not physically practice with your students, or whether you should or should not just walk around the room and guide and instruct. But I think the real question is, are you creating a space for community that feels inclusive? That any person who walks through the door can feel like they are getting what they need
Mm,
to feel good and safe and cared for and nurtured. And I don't care if it's power hot yoga or the most restorative, like snuggly, practice
right.
of meditation, anywhere in between that.
And odds are you're going to have some experienced practitioners that have been
Mm-hmm.
doing yoga for 30 years,
Yes.
and you may have someone that is just walking into that studio for the first time.
Yeah.
So you also have to think, like, how do I
Mm.
accommodate both of those experience
Yes.
levels? This individual that's been doing it 30 years,
Yeah.
they just need to hear what the pose is or what the next transition is going to be, and they're going to do it on their own and they're
Mm-hmm.
going to be comfortable with how they do that. Someone else may be completely lost.
Yeah. And I've been practicing a physical practice now for what, almost 30 years. And I have taken plenty of classes, studio classes, where there is no physical, the teacher is not doing a physical practice. We sometimes call poses different names, right? Whether it's
Right.
Sanskrit or English. There are times, so if you're not building a pose from the ground up, if you're not giving me all of the cues necessary for me to figure out what shape I need to make with my body, I will never understand. It doesn't matter if I've been doing it for 30 years or if
Yeah.
I'm brand new to the practice.
Right.
And so it's finding that sweet spot of the in between,
Right.
right? Of like, how do I give you all of the information necessary for you to have a safe, productive, beautiful experience, coupled with tons of silence, like
Yeah.
freaking be quiet,
Yeah.
shut up for a little while,
Right.
right? And and how can I do that in a way that makes everyone feel like they are welcome in that space?
Yeah, and one of the most significant things that I remember taking your class as well was the modifications, right?
Yeah.
My body is naturally very stiff. I could practice for 20 years straight. I go into that yoga studio and my hamstrings are stiff, my back is stiff, and I need modifications to certain poses or certain transitions into the next pose.
Yeah.
But if it's black and white from the teacher, I'm going to struggle with how do I do it the proper way, or I can't
Mm.
do that pose fully. What's a good modification that I could do to achieve the same thing for my own body?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think as a teacher, it's learning too. And this again could be a whole nother podcast, but as a teacher too, I think that it's important to even deliver that without it feeling like a modification. I'm not having you modify. This is just another way of doing it.
Right.
You could explore it, right? Let's try it this way. Let's try it this way. And as a teacher, even though I can do what would be considered the most advanced, I do a lot of air quotes, I noticed, because a lot of it is like an eye roll for me, because there's no such thing as like any of this being advanced. It's just what makes most sense for your particular body.
Mm.
But in the eye of the beholder, maybe it looks like the most advanced physical rendition of that particular shape. Though I can do that, I don't while I'm teaching. I back off. I only ever go at like maybe 80%. And if I'm in a practice where I'm practicing with people who physically couldn't even be at my 80%, I back off of that even more.
Sure.
And so, I'm not on stage. I'm not there to perform and to do circus tricks, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a gymnast. And so,
And it's important to remember that your 60% may be someone else's 100%. So,
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, we jumped in and kind of this was our spin on this argument that we see and hear all of the time. And I don't think that we are taking part necessarily in an argument. I don't fall on one end of the spectrum or the other, because I wholeheartedly believe that each person needs to decide that for themselves. Each teacher has to figure out what makes the most sense for them, their practice, their body, all the things.
Hmm.
But I do think at the end of the day, the decision has to lie with how you show up in that space as someone who is compassionate. How do you show up in that space as someone who wants the best for the people who are sitting in front of you?
Hmm.
And I'm not saying that either thing is right or wrong. You have to figure out what the answer is, but you have to ask the right question,
Right.
right? The question is not, should you physically do the asana with your students, or should you only be walking around and verbally instructing? That's not the question. The question is, how do I show up as the best version of myself, the best version of a teacher, and in the best way for the people who showed up here to learn from me?
Yeah. And I don't know if you disagree, but I think it's important to ask your students, what do they want?
Yes. Yeah.
What do you want?
Yeah. What do you
we,
what
we just went through that class and there was a lot of instruction, little movement. What did you think of that?
Yeah.
Were you comfortable with it? Do you want more of this, less
Mhm.
of that? And then over time you just slowly start to incorporate all that little feedback that you get from your students,
Sure.
and you could do it all in one class. You could instruct, you can move with them,
Mhm.
you can hands-on assist, maybe not, all in one
Mhm.
class,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Totally agree.
yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Beyond the Asana. Get out there and teach however makes the most sense for you. And we hope you have a beautiful day. Thank you.